The Chiropractic Philanthropist, episode 262.
Everything takes action and work. Nothing just happens. So you still have to hear it, you have to listen to it. And, many plans fail for lack of advisors. So have your mentors and your coaches, but then you still got to do the work.
Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
Hey Doc, want to start a successful social media marketing campaign that will get you anywhere from 10 to 45 qualified new patients contacting you for appointments? Of course you would. You probably already have been shown how to do it, so why haven't you implemented? Most doctors don't have the time and they don't care to spend the money trying to figure out what methods work. 3S Chiropractic Systems has put in the time for you and have been testing the methods for years, so if you want to surge new patients every month, that's it, right at your fingertips. The company is run by chiropractors with years of web and social media marketing experience, offering you a complete, affordable, done-for-you package. Get this system. It's swooping across the globe and is geographically exclusive, so find out right now if your area is still available. They offer full money-back guarantee for the first month, so there is absolutely no risk. Apply at 3schiropracticsystems.com/TCP to make sure you don't miss out. All right, TCP listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Todd Gignac. Dr. Todd, how you doing?
Wonderful, Dr. Ed. I'm super happy to be on the show. As we were just chatting, pre-chat there, this is I'm an interviewee virgin for on podcasting. I'm usually doing the interviews. This is good.
That's right. And you're probably feeling what I'm feeling when I get interviewed, which is because I'm so used to being the person asking the questions. I always feel like, geez, I don't know if I'm actually giving the right answer. So I want to acknowledge you for coming on the show today and how hard it actually is.
Yeah, I hope I don't screw it up.
Well, for those who don't know who you are, Dr. Todd, tell us a little bit about you as a person. Tell us about you as a chiropractor. And then, later on, I'll throw a hook. Later on, we're going to actually talk about you as a business person as well.
Okay, cool. Who am I as a person? Well, Florida boy, born and raised in Florida, and went to U of F, go Gators, and graduated, went to chiro school in LA. The now defunct, sadly, Cleveland Chiropractic College, and graduated in 2002. So I'm starting to feel like I'm getting into I don't know if I want to say a veteran in career, but going on 15 years. So I'm sure we'll get into a little later in our talk a little bit about that journey. Some ups and downs for sure that I think hopefully people can relate to. And yeah, so graduated in 2002, got married a week later to my beautiful wife, Carolina. And we lived in San Diego, practiced there for 6 years, and had a couple beautiful daughters, Tiana and Bella. Then we got an opportunity to move to Australia, and that was 8 years ago, and been there ever since. And it's been an amazing ride, Ed, amazing ride. I'm very blessed. You have your challenges along the way for sure. But and when you're in the middle of it, of course, when you're kind of in that pit, you're just thinking, well, this was really bad. And sometimes you can't see through the crap and through the fog. But then you always come out of it. Yeah. And then when you look back, you're like, well, I'm actually glad that all happened because it shapes you and defines you. And it's kind of like refined by fire. You know what I mean? You grow from it.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that a little more down the track, I'm sure. But yeah, so we live in Australia now in a beautiful town called Gympie. It doesn't sound beautiful. Sounds like, insert joke, which is about 2 hours north of Brisbane in Queensland. So it's just a beautiful spot where we have a practice there now that we started from scratch a couple years ago. It's going great. And as we're speaking, we're on holiday. We just got in from Costa Rica yesterday, and we are now in Dana Point, California, as we speak. So
Wow.
it's good
Wow.
times.
I had the opportunity about almost a year ago to head to Australia and to speak at Raw at a conference. And man, what a beautiful country.
It
Just
is good.
oh man, so
And in fact,
cool.
I saw you at that conference.
I know, I know. We saw.
It's a
I
small
think.
world, really.
Yes, even though it's a big country, it's a small world in chiropractic there. But yeah, just incredible. Hey, one of the things that we love to talk about, Doc, is, as chiropractors, I see this all over social media, Instagram, quotes, affirmations. What are some of your favorite words that you would like to share with chiropractors today?
Favorite words? Well, I can only share, if you asked me 2 years ago, I'd probably have a different answer than today, maybe 6 months ago even. But for me, at least, I've been thinking more about, being a chiropractor, but also being a parent and seeing what's going on in the world. Legacy is a big one that keeps pulling at me and pulling me in different directions and stepping up and getting out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. But yeah, chiropractically speaking, of course, there's always you can't go beyond innate intelligence and man, trust and faith. Those are just some big words, and we'll get into that as we go through the interview. I'm sure we've got some poignant questions for me, but yeah, man, innate intelligence, faith, trust,
Legacy. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one thing that a lot of chiropractors, is that we work towards, isn't it? Is that we all want to create a real legacy, like BJ, like Didi, like what they created was a legacy, something that lived on past their time. So,
well, that's right. I mean, and in practice, I love practicing, and it depends on which I don't know people you're talking to within the profession, but I think across the board, we can all agree that our job is to improve the experience and the life quality of the people we're entrusted to take care of.
mm-hmm.
So some people do that. I only adjust. I only talk about adjustments. I only talk subluxation. There's nothing else in chiropractic other than that, which I can totally understand. And then, there's ancillary things to that too that some docs do. And we could talk about, lifestyle and things like that outside of our practice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when it comes to that legacy, regardless of how you exactly practices, one day we won't be able to practice or we'll be gone.
Yep.
So what will you be remembered for? I mean, when you think about how the bigness of things, and of Steve Jobs talking about leaving a dent in the universe, and that's what's really been pulling on me lately. Well, how it's almost like we've got to reach outside of our practice, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to get to legacy status. BJ didn't sit in a clinic all day long, right? He had radio stations and, traveled the globe and changing the mindset and the paradigm, or at least you certainly made a shift that we're continuing today. So what kind of shift are you and I and the listeners going to make? What kind of strength? And there comes that faith and trust to actually act on that voice and that pull.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just kind of where I've been at particularly in the last 6-12 months more so. But yeah.
And so, Doc, do you have a favorite quote that you would like to share with docs as well?
I do, Dr. Ed. And I'm going to pull a biblical quote here. I am a man of faith, but I know we got listeners who might think differently or whatever. But I think that regardless of your philosophy or theology, you can pull from this, and it relates, in my opinion, right into chiropractic. It's Romans 12:2. New Century Version is Romans 12:2. Do not be shaped by this world. Instead, be changed within by a new way of thinking. So do not be shaped by this world. Be changed within by a new way of thinking, like from above down, inside out. Being shaped by the world would be completely outside in, right? And it continues. Then you will be able to decide what God wants for you. You will know what is good and pleasing to Him and what is perfect. So if you're not, God-minded, you could translate that to you'll be able to know what universe wants or intelligence wants or your creator wants for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you will know what is good and pleasing. and what is perfect. Because we're trying to figure it out all the time, right?
Yeah.
And the answers are right in front of us. Like, just get out of the way. Don't be shaped by the TV and the latest fad and what everybody else is doing, but be changed within. And it's not easy. That's where having faith in the voice, faith in God, whatever you resonate with, but having that faith to listen to that innate, that gut instinct when everyone else around you tells you, yeah, I don't think so. That's not going to work, or that sounds risky, or, that could lead to some sort of pain or loss. And you should just stick, don't rock the boat, just stick with what works. And, so for me, this is something to lean on, because for me, that might as well be etched in marble. And I think regardless of the listener's beliefs, when you really take that in and break it down, it gives you hope that you can listen to that gut, But we were talking about in the pre-chat, everything takes action and work. Nothing just happens. So you still have to hear it, you have to listen to it. And, many plans fail for lack of advisors. So have your mentors and your coaches, but then you still got to do the work.
Yeah.
So you're going to get the advice, you're going to listen to your gut, but then you've got to take action. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. So I kind of went all over the shop there, but Romans 12:2. Write that down.
Well, I love it. I mean, I do. That's something that I've learned about you. And I guess we're probably coming up on close to a year of knowing each other, kind of, back and forth with Skype calls and things like that over this time period. Is that, one thing I know about you, Dr. Todd, is you are a producer. Like you're a creator, a producer. You're not someone who does not listen to the voice. You don't squash the voice. You're not afraid of risk. And if there's something that also docs could take away from that, what you're saying here is, listen to that voice, act, execute on it. The people that I see that get incredible expansion in their life and business, both, are the people like yourself or myself. Like, I just don't question it anymore. I just follow,
Yeah.
Just go.
And the fear will come, well, what if this, and, again, the first bit of this quote, do not be shaped by this world. If the world had it figured out, the world would be prosperous, happy, healthy, but look around. It's like, why would we listen to what the world's telling us, to what the TV tells us and the talking heads and the newspapers and the media? It's like, just turn that shit off and go inside, like just turn off the noise. And that's another thing that I've just started doing recently, is just making some space, some meditation, just so you can actually hear. You can hear God, you can hear the voice, but you've got to turn off all the noise, Yeah. I don't know about you, but my brain's all going in 10 directions constantly. So if I don't just stop and, I was recently called a bag of cats. So I'm all over the shop.
or like herding cats.
Herding cats, yeah.
Because I'm exactly the same way. I have the entrepreneurial ADHD, or maybe chiropreneur ADHD, which is not a bad thing, right? It's just, you need those people in your life too that can help rein you in and focus that energy.
That's right.
And you'll get once you get the flywheel going on one thing, then you'll just go to the next project. So, I know that we're going to get to that in a moment of what the project is for you.
Yeah.
But before we do, Doc, I want to go deep. I want to know. Let's go deep. Let's go there. Deep, baby. Everyone knows my story. Everyone knows how I was in the pit and how I got out of the pit, and not once, but I had to rebuild it. I had to crawl out of the pit 3 times. So what is it that what happened? Where did you fall on your face? And then what did you learn from that?
Well, I'll bring it to, we'll go back when things were good. So high school, I was a C student, man. If I got a C, I was happy. Just get through kind of attitude. Just wanted to hang with my friends. Wasn't really worried about academia as such. And then I wanted to go to University of Florida, which is probably the hardest university to get into, but I had C's. It's like you could have straight A's and still get denied. So I got denied. And then I did, at least in the States, there's what they call community college, So you go to a couple years there, and then, so once I knew that I wanted to be a chiropractor, right, the grades started coming. That's all it is. You just need a purpose. So I shed the I'm a C student to I'm an A student, because I have to be. And of course the A's came and grade point average up, applied to the university again, got turned down again. And I went to the admissions office. If you remember Rudy, what do I have to do? I was like the Rudy guy. I went to admin. I'm like, what do I have to do? Is there anything else I can do? She's like, well, rewrite, you have to write a letter as to why they should accept you. So do this and do that and change your letter. And so I did that, did another semester at the community college, got my grade point up again and applied again for the third time now, and finally got in, right? So that was like a big deal getting into UF, at least for me. And so that went well too. Great grades, chiro school, sailed through, was, top of the class, blah, 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 did some coaching at the end. So I would come out, guns blazing, young chiropractor, I'm going to set the world on fire and hit all these goals and aspirations. So leading up to everything, it seemed like I'm unstoppable, right? That was my mind. I can't fail. So keeping that in mind, that's where my head was at. Year one in practice, I rented space from another chiropractor, thinking, we have similar philosophies, and he's a bit of a veteran, so he'll help me along. And long story short, borrowed money from my parents. They were kind enough. They, took out a loan, lent me money. So I bought a couple tables and had some working capital. At the end of a year, Ed, all I had to show, all my money was gone that I took borrowed. All I had to show for it was a 30-a-week practice and 2 tables. Wow. So let's just say there was, it was deflating. I thought, I'd have this big practice and be cruising. I couldn't pay my bills. I cried myself to sleep more than once. I didn't know what to do. Quite frankly, I was at this point going, well, do I still be a chiropractor? Like, what do I do? I don't even know where to turn. So definitely was flat. That was just a kick. It was kicking the balls for sure. And a wake up call, like, hey, the world isn't always easy. Not everything's going to be kind of handed to you. And what are you going to do now, champ? What are you going to do now? And I happened to meet a guy at a screening, a chiropractor, and he said, look, why don't you come and move into my office? I won't charge you any rent. I'll help you get on your feet. And slowly but surely, it was no meteoric rise by any means, but slowly but surely I started to find my way. And of course, my self-confidence was destroyed by then. It's like I didn't even know how to talk to a patient. Like, I loved chiropractic and had certainty in chiropractic, but I didn't have it in myself to deliver. Mm-hmm. I felt kind of like I'm just this fake guy. I don't really know what I'm doing here. And then, in front of my peers and everything, I always put on this facade like, yeah, everything's good. It's awesome. High five, I don't know what that was about, but, yeah, so it was hard. And then, it took several years really to finally, find my way and find myself. I guess through all that was really peeling off the layers and getting to just being real, be myself, and not try to be this. As a young chiropractor, you look at these people on stage at seminars and I need to be like them, mm-hmm. and do it exactly like them. And that would probably, if I was going to give any young listeners any advice, don't try to be like anybody else. Mm-hmm. Learn from them, pull from them, but then be you, and make things your own and do it your way. So yeah, so that was tough, but mm-hmm. but again, you learn from these things, and if it wasn't for that time, we wouldn't be who I am today, or and I tell you, those times of challenge, that's what really builds the strength and your faith. Mm-hmm. And just things will work out. You just stay the course, and it certainly thickens thy skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, when you're faced with challenges later, because there's certainly worse things than that. I mean, your story, you could lose your health, or yep. You could lose a family member, a loved one. Much worse trauma than what I just described. But for me, that was trauma. I didn't know where to go. Sitting here going, well, I'm 6 figures in debt, and I got 30 people on the books next week. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we doing? I have a new baby, and I'm married, and then all that shit starts going through your head. Like, boy, I'm a failure. Failing in practice, I'm going to fail to provide for my family. I'm going to fail as a husband and as a father. This is the stuff that rolls around at 2 a.m. What do I do? Mm-hmm. How do I get out of this mess? And it's easy. I can see how there's students, young grads in our profession, then they start getting resentful towards chiropractic. Like
Mm-hmm.
chiropractic failed me. So if that's you and you're listening, chiropractic works. It's not chiropractic's fault. Granted, the schools don't do maybe a great job of equipping young docs to go be successful. So find good mentors and latch on. And obviously, Ed or I, shoot us an email if you're struggling. We'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
I
definitely.
kind of crawled my way out. And again, not a meteoric thing, but year after year, a little stronger. Getting your skill sets and certainty, and just really had to build it all up from the ground up. And it's good now.
And then you did it again too, because like you moved to relocated to like another country.
Yeah. So we got an opportunity about 6 years into practice, and we were still having our struggles. We're in Southern California. It's not the cheapest. It's just a kind of a harder place
Mm-hmm.
to do things in general. And we just had an opportunity to move to Australia. And so listening to that voice,
Yeah.
we're like, man, do we leave everything we know, everything we've worked for to this point, leave our family behind and take our two young, we had an infant at the time. Do we just go to Australia?
Mm-hmm.
And we did. We listened to the voice. Voice said go. So we did, sold everything, gave away a lot of stuff, and just had, 8 suitcases full of stuff. And rocked up. We had an opportunity to be an associate in a practice in a town called Bundaberg.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife Carolina, she's like, "Are the roads paved there? Like, is there a store?" Her family used to live when she was a kid out in the middle of nowhere, and it was just dirt roads for like 40 minutes outside of town to get to a farm they lived on in Australia, New South Wales. So that was her vision of Australia. Like we were going to be in the outback. Trying to,
Wow.
dodge kangaroos and adjusting people, but it was civilization. But I tell you, coming from Southern California, which is kind of the epitome of the rat race and keeping up with the Joneses and all that superficiality stuff, to Bundaberg, where it was, there'd be farmers that were worth millions of dollars, and they would drive rusty trucks and walk into the grocery store with no shoes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just a totally different mindset, and it's much slower pace, and the stress just melted off and presented a whole nother opportunity of growth from the standpoint of, I don't need to, have any facade or image or keep up with anybody. I can just rock up to my practice, love and serve.
Mm-hmm.
Done. So the message there is, it doesn't matter if you're in Southern California, Calgary, Toronto, New York, wherever, just do that anyway. You don't have to be anybody's version of anything other than just rock up and be yourself. If you want to wear frickin' flip-flops and that's what you're comfortable in, then do that.
Yeah.
One of my best mates back in the States who I used to practice with, Derek, if you're listening, hope you don't mind me talking about you. But, he's got the full-on beard and he's all tatted up and wears jeans and Vans to the office. And he's got Pantera playing. And I used to practice. I'm like, dude, you can't play that stuff. And why don't you tuck in your shirt? And, you got to wear a collared shirt. Like that was my headspace.
Yeah.
And he does, the more he let go and just was himself, the better he does. And it's not that he's got a bunch of, thrashing metalheads coming in. It is, there's, everyday people coming in and they actually respect that. They go, hey, that's cool. I'm not a big Pantera fan maybe, but I think it's cool that you're just being you and that you listen to Pantera and you don't worry about what other people think. They respect that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we got out of going to Bundaberg, Australia. It was just, be you, man. Just love and serve. Shed. We're always looking for something to add. We got to add something. Add a procedure. Add a slick sentence. You don't. You need your systems and stuff, but just rock up and love people and be honest and be authentic, and magic happens. It's good.
It always seems to come back to that conversation on TCP of authenticity, or what I like to call is like self-awareness. Like, who are you and how do you show up? And I mean, it seems that the people who are really killing it in practice and the ones who are loving it and having fun and just are in a space of where they want to be is, the people who are the people who are themselves. They don't show up as anyone else but themselves. And Doc, I think this is a great transition, actually. This is a perfect transition into what you're doing now. Because like, I mean, I know, and I'm super excited to hear more about, this new project that you're working on. But, this is something that's going to change also chiropractic profession, I believe, and help a lot of people. So can you fill us in a little bit about Kill a Pillow?
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that. So yeah, so Kill a Pillow. I've already got some flack from some folks in our profession, some of which are influencers,
Hmm.
that it's a pillow and who gives a crap, and you should be focusing on, just chiropractic and subluxation. And I respect that, and I understand where they're coming from. And that's really how I practice. I don't, quote, sell. I don't stock a lot of stuff in my practice. We talk chiropractic, we tell the story, and all of that. But in saying that, so I'll back up. So the Killa pillow is a cervical pillow, and it's funny. Like knee jerk reaction is who cares? It's a pillow, like it's a commodity. Who cares? I can go down to Costco and get a 2-pack for $20. What's the big deal? Or if you're a chiropractor, maybe you do stock some sort of contoured pillow. They obviously exist. So what it was born out of really was our practice members kept asking us, "What do you recommend for a pillow?" And I'm like, "Gosh, I don't know." And then the ones, at least in Australia, and pretty well the ones I'm aware of in the States as well, what they sell, we weren't happy with it. Like I wouldn't want to sleep on them. So we just got this stack of pillows in the corner that collect dust. And I tell people, yeah, don't buy those, but they're just sitting there, And my wife Carolina's like, man, we really need to create our own pillow. And she's been telling me this for years. And I'm just like, I don't have time or energy to, chiropractic. I got to build, we kept moving. So we kept, kind of starting a practice over again. Right. So we're in Gympie, starting from dead zero in a town we knew nobody. I don't have time to be diverted into this.
Hmm.
But as when things are right, right, when the time is right, the voice speaks to you. And there was a confluence of things that came together. We met some people that could help us. Like, how do you even bring this to life? Well, how do you manufacture something? Where do you get the materials? Like, there's so many details that you would never think of to go into something like that. So, and we wanted one for ourselves. We brought up pillows from the States when we moved here that we liked. And the people who produced it were mom and pop, and they went out of business. So we're like, crap, what do we do? So we liked it. So we took the pattern of it, if you will, or,
Hmm.
and then we found through one of our practice members, his mother-in-law owns a factory. Like they make school uniforms and stuff in Brisbane, Australia for, in Australia, the kids wear uniforms and like Girl Scouts and sports teams. So they did all the uniforms. So we're like, cool. Well, there's somebody that could maybe help us actually manufacture the thing. And they're local to us, which is great. We were into that. And then, so we started doing this research and we started looking at materials. And most of the pillows, including the ones we had been sleeping on, the one that we liked from the States, was made from, the filler was polyester, that polyfill,
Yeah.
which most pillows are stuffed with some version of that. And it turns, so that stuff, as we did our research, that is made from petrochemicals, it starts its life off as crude oil. And goes through this whole nasty chemical process. So if you care about the planet and sustainability, you'll see that just to create the materials itself creates a bunch of pollutants to the planet, and then these things outgas, Ed, for the life of the pillow. So we didn't know this. We're thinking, hey, this is all good, and then so these things they're leaking, outgassing volatile organic compounds, right, VOCs, for the life of the pillow. Some of them you can actually smell. You get those like memory foam and that kind of. They actually
Yeah, I can smell
they
that.
actually smell, and that like a
Yeah.
new car smell. That new smell that everybody's like, ooh, new car. That's
Hmm.
all plastic outgassing. It's horrible.
Hmm.
Um, so we're like, holy cow, we're sleeping on this. Our kids are sleeping on it. A third of our life, 8 hours, 8 hours a night. So that's a chemical stressor. That can't be good for people holding their adjustments, for one.
Hmm.
And there's obviously the biomechanics of it. So we started thinking, well, this is very congruent with chiropractic. I know some doctors are just thinking, nah, just adjust and stick with the adjustment. And I get it. Nothing supersedes the adjustment. You can't add to the adjustment. You can't take away. You can't improve upon it. But at the same time, they get this beautiful adjustment, right? And let's say your patient's on once a week, right? So what happens in the other 167 hours and 55 minutes?
Hmm.
They're bombarded with stressors, right? And so we thought, how can we make the biggest impact once they leave our office. We can give them home exercises and traction, which we do all that. But as you and I and our listeners know, compliance isn't all the best with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And we can tell people how to eat better and how to do this better. And we do workshops from time to time on all that stuff. But, compliance just isn't great. It's hard. But what's something that we can get 100% compliance on? Well, they sleep. And most everybody sleeps on something. So we thought, well, if we can support their spine in a way that's conducive to supporting their posture and our adjustments while they're sleeping for a third of their life, that just makes, to us at least, that makes sense. And if we can do it with materials that aren't poisoning them all night long, that's all the better. And so when we research, yes, there's already cervical pillows out there, most of which are mechanically flawed. They put the head in anywhere from 1 to 4 inches into anterior head carriage if you're laying on your back.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what's the point of that? And then even if there might be 1 or 2 brands that are better biomechanically, but then they're made with these synthetic materials, so they're outgassing. Or they're made overseas somewhere. So our criteria, Ed, was number 1, spinally correct. We want to make the best cervical pillow to support the spine in a neutral position, support the cervical lordosis, etc., which obviously has a global effect on the spine and posture and nervous system. And then our second criteria was natural materials. So in our case, we researched, and what we found to be best being in Australia was we've got certified Australian wool. So we wanted to support local industry as well. So we're using Australian wool. And wool, if you don't know, and we didn't know any of this stuff, we just started digging. And we started looking at the whole textile industry, which I'll talk about briefly in a second. But so the wool is, it's naturally cool in the summer. It's warm in the winter. It's naturally antimicrobial, antifungal, and naturally fire retardant. So as a filler, it was perfect. Right. And it's sustainable. You don't have to kill the sheep. You don't have to use chemicals and all this crazy processing. So it's very sustainable. And because we're using obviously local Australian farms and farmers, we're not exploiting, people in the third world who are working for $1 a day. And, so that brings me, and our third criteria was we want to bring local industry back. And now we're in Australia, right? We're Americans. And always will be. And what we've noticed too in our research is that just between 2000 and 2010, 56,000 manufacturers in the U.S. shut down. 56,000, man, millions of jobs, and everybody's complaining. But then we go buy our wares, our clothes, and our whatever. We buy stuff that's all made overseas. We don't support anything local. So it's our vision has really grown. So back to legacy, really, is. We're chiropractors first and foremost, but, I could be adjusting everybody till the cows come home, but we're living in this toxic world. We're toxifying the planet. We're sleeping on toxic stuff. We're wearing toxic stuff through the cotton. The cotton industry had 99% of the cotton industry is conventional, meaning it's sprayed, right? And cotton only represents 4% of all the crops in the world, but uses 25% of all the pesticides. So it's heavily sprayed, and the vast majority of which is grown overseas, in like your India and China and so on, and they don't have the same regulations. So these poor farmers are, just breathing chemicals. So the World Health Organization says 20 to 40,000 farmers every year in the cotton industry die. Usually from cancers, from exposure to the chemicals, and they're in their mid-30s, the average age. So we're buying our favorite brands and stuff like that, and we just go along to Costco or wherever, Target. Hey, look, honey, we can get a whole 3-pack for $10. But that's actually really expensive. It's expensive to the planet. We're exploiting human beings overseas. We're causing our industries to be shipped overseas, so we're taking away jobs from our own family and friends because we're shutting it down. So that brings us down to the pillow. The pillow makes sense. So that's where we started, but it opened up this whole, sorry, just getting a distraction from the side here. It's opening up this whole thing to us. Like, well, we got to do we got to start a movement here. So we're starting with the pillow, which makes sense chiropractically, yeah. And that's where we can have the biggest effect on people because they're sleeping on it all day long. But we eventually want to get it just into textiles eventually altogether. Killa Industries was born. Our first product will be Killa Pilla. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell.
And so how?
Real quick. So back to our factory. So just to give, this is a real life example. So the factory, this is our practice member's mother, right? Mom is about to go out of business because as she was doing these school uniforms and Girl Scouts, Girl Guides, they're all, guess where they're going? They're going to China to have their stuff made cheap. So yeah, you're getting it cheaper, but you're literally killing farmers. You're poisoning the planet and all this stuff just so you can get it cheap. Not to mention it's all got to be shipped back and forth on these big container ships. You know what I mean? Like, we just need to change how we're looking at things or buying criteria. I'm actually just got back from Costco because I'm visiting with my mom, and I went to Costco for the first time in years. And I was just like, holy shit, this is insane. And it's just so consumer driven. Like seriously, we've gone mad, but when you're living in it, you don't see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just don't see it. And you almost have to step back. I'm just looking at all this stuff and you just go, man, we got some issues. So this factory, we literally just through the pillow. So I'm trying to raise awareness through the chiropractic profession and chiropractors who see value in the big idea and the big picture behind the pillow, as well as obviously how it's good for our spine and nervous system. But if I can get some chiropractors to rally behind this and order pillows, the pillow itself will literally save her factory. You know, if we can get enough demand for the pillows just on a regular basis, it'll save her factory. Otherwise she's going under. They're all going to China. So, and I mean, that's yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Well, I mean, there's you've shared a lot of information and how this is, you know, and how it's, you know, helping a lot of people, but it's also helping, you know, really chiropractors as well. But if docs want to learn more, like, is there somewhere that we can send them to actually go and find out more, Dr. Todd?
That's a great question, Ed. Yes, we do have a website and a Facebook page, and we're literally in kind of pre-launch stage. Some of you who are listening to this may have been invited to participate in a survey, or, you know, you may have seen some of our videos. And you know, look, and I'm on this side of the fence. At one point, I was on your side of the fence, and it seems like someone's always got something they want to sell you or some gimmick. And that's the last thing we want to be seen as. We want to be seen more as we have a product, but it's what does the product represent, and what does it provide for our practice members, our families, and really for the world and how we consume things. So killapilla.com.au, KILLAPILLA.com.au is the website. And if you just search Facebook for Killa Pilla, or Killa Industries, Killa Industries, you'll find us on Facebook as well. And, you know, we're just literally putting stuff together. So if it looks 90% done, that's because it is. So take that in mind. You know, I'm a chiropractor. I'm not a computer guy. So I do have a great team that's been helping me, a patient who's been helping me with the computer stuff and video, and that's not my cup of tea. Bag of cats, I couldn't get that done by myself, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we're really excited about it, and I can give you just firsthand, our first testimonials are our own family. So my wife and daughter, our eldest daughter, they have like allergy type issues, sensitivities. And, you know, we're a chiropractic family, right? They get adjusted regularly. Kids have never been vaccinated, feed them real food, all that stuff. In spite of that, some issues, right? So my wife would literally have a fit of sneezing and, you know, clearing her throat and watery eyes for 5-10 minutes every night as soon as she hit the pillow. And we just thought that was just her. We didn't really think about what we were sleeping on. We just thought, well, she's a bit nutty, whatever. Like, that's just her. And then my daughter would wake up in the middle of the night sneezing and having a fit. I'd get up and adjust her, clear her out, and she'd sleep. But then in the morning, she would be 10 minutes sneezing and all this stuff, and I'd have to adjust her again. We just thought there was what's the stressor, right? What's the influence? So we switched out their pillows doing our prototyping, right? We've done months of prototyping for Killa Pilla to get the right. And so we switched them out, and we didn't really think about it right away, Ed, but I think it was like 2 weeks in, and Carolina goes, "Hey, have you noticed I haven't been having these like, allergic fits, these." I'm like,
Yeah.
"You know what? You're right." And we noticed Tiana wasn't either. And all we did was switch out their pillow.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can minimize that, but what's going on internally if their immune system's not firing up and having an autoimmune reaction every day?
Yeah.
I mean, how many millions of people are doing the same thing, and we're trying to figure it out? Maybe it's something in their food. Maybe it's the air quality. Maybe it's this. Maybe, we've been struggling with this for years, Ed, trying to figure it out. And then bam, we switch the pillow. Beauty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there can be other things too. I get it. We won't eliminate all the stressors, but that's an easy one that we can control.
Yeah.
And, it's hours and hours a day, every single day. So we're excited about where we're going with it, man. That's the legacy for me. I want to pull my kids into something. They may or may not want to be chiropractors, but if we can start some enterprises that tie into our bigger umbrella vision of a better planet and healthier, happier people,
Beautiful.
We're into it, man.
Cool. Yeah. Well, listeners, actually, you can head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Todd today as well. And we're going to have links to the resources that he's provided. Dr. Todd, before we kind of wrap things up with a conversation today too,
Sure.
Definitely a unique conversation today. I always like to take people and put them in the time machine. So
I love time travel, Ed. I barely come back. It's just good stuff.
You time travel ahead all the time. So I'm going to put you in the back. We're going to go back to the future, you could say. So
Yes.
I'm going to put you into the time machine here at TCP. I'm going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. This is right after you came out of chiropractic college. And you have all the life experience, you have all the knowledge you have today. What would you say to that younger self?
Well, that's a great question, Ed, and that's a good one. I kind of touched on it earlier, and that is, if I could go back, especially if we're just talking, from my experience and what I shared earlier, career-wise, for me, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, it would be, what's the expression? Don't be so headstrong and cocksure, or cockstrong and headsure. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But swallow your pride. Don't be so naive, and get some good mentors and go work for them. Go work for somebody for a couple years and develop your skills, develop your certainty, have a strategy.
Yeah.
And then go off if you still want to and start a practice. I think that would have saved me years of pain and struggle and poverty had I done that.
Beautiful.
To begin with. So if there's a listener and maybe a younger doc who's struggling, ditch the pride. And I don't know if I was just being arrogant or ignorant or all the above, but I'm certainly humbled after maybe that was what I needed to be humbled. I need to have my ass handed to me for a while to go, oh yeah, I should ask for help, because I had people all around me, great chiropractors and great people all around me in Southern California that could have would have been happy to mentor me, but I always put on this facade of, yep, it's going great, kicking butt, and it just wasn't the truth. And I even bought the lie. I even started to believe that things were good. Like, oh yeah, this happened, so next month's really going to be good. And it was just a constant roller coaster. So yeah, my advice, there it is.
I love it, because, mentorship never stops. The coaching, mentorship. I mean, I have my coaches, mentors. I have the people I bounce off ideas and I rely on. And I think that's a great takeaway and a perfect way to wrap up the TCP podcast today, is to just, Doc, I mean, if you're listening and you're resonating with this message, take a few things from this episode. Is that, like, look, if, listen to the voice, execute, follow and listen. And certainly, have the mentors, have the coaches, have the people that you can learn from that have all done it before you and can give you incredible advice. Head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. Again, we'll have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Todd today. Check out Kilapilla. All the links and the resources are there. If you want to go ahead now on your mobile, open up and expand those show notes, and you'll actually find the links you can link through from your mobile right now. But Dr. Todd, I want to thank you so much for being on TCP Podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Ed, and thanks for allowing me to share. It was I'm glad that I had my interview. I was going to say cherry, but that's a little. I just said it, didn't I? Don't.
You did.
That's uncouth.
No problem. No, awesome job. And I want to, just thank you so much for giving back. I know that, it's not always easy being on the other side of the conversation chair. So Thank you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.